Indianapolis this week. Cyber criminals attack Anthem, stealing data on 80 million people. What more can be done and what more should be done to protect your personal information? The president's plan for free community college tuition. Could it really work in Indiana? And our Sunday Spotlight.
Do we still love people? Love wingers.
We go one-on-one with one of the survivors of the Birmingham Church bombing.
From RTV6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
And thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. I'm Erica Fly. Rafael has the weekend off. We begin today with that massive cyber hack against Anthem Insurance. Cyber criminals hit the Indianapolis-based insurer, getting personal information of about 80 million customers and employees. It could become the largest hack of a healthcare company ever. While the FBI investigates what happened, the company says it was the victim of a very sophisticated cyber attack.
Is definitely users' personal identification and information. Their social securities, their email addresses, their date of birth, their address, things like that. That's the core information that you need to, establish yourself as somebody else. That's definitely what they were targeting.
So what should you do if you are one of the hacking victims? The Attorney General's office suggests you consider a credit freeze. You can do that on their website, indianaconsumer.com. Just go to the website and scroll down to the section called Identity Theft and Security Breaches and sign up for a free credit freeze. That will keep a hacker or criminal from taking out a line of credit in your name. The website has plenty of other tips for consumers as well. You can find a link to that website by going to the indychannel.com and look in the hot button section. The Anthem hack is sparking calls in the nation's capital for the government to do more to protect companies and your private information. One of those making that call, Senator Dan Coates. In an interview with RTV6, Coates calls it the country's #1 priority. He also says major businesses need to work closer with the feds, including the NSA, to help identify cyber attacks before they get your private data.
Sound the alarm and the alert, identifying something coming in that can spread and do harm and stop it. And they have the capacity to do that. And also retaliation. We need to identify who's doing this, and we need to go after their systems to ensure that there is a major consequence to be paid for doing this kind of thing.
Indiana Congresswoman Susan Brooks is another of those at the forefront on cybersecurity in Congress. It is the first topic our Katie Hines talked to her about from Washington.
80 million people right here at home, too, in the Hoosier State, hit and affected potentially by this cyber attack on Anthem. Is it time for Congress to step in? And if so, what can Congress do about this?
Congress has been debating cybersecurity for many years, but I believe it is time we stop debating and we come up with a resolution. The resolution needs to be one that allows the private sector, companies like Anthem, to be able to work more closely with the government. And we have to, the hacking organizations and even nation states, such as possibly states like China, have become so sophisticated. I know that Anthem, we talked to them shortly before it was announced. They called us to let us know it had happened, and I did appreciate that call. We know that companies like that work day in and day out, have a lot of data security professionals working to protect our personal identification. I happen to be an Anthem customer as well, so it does hit home. It's going to hit a lot of Hoosiers. However, they are obviously making opportunities for us to get identity protection methods put in place, and I would encourage Hoosiers to do that.
I know that President Obama unveiled his budget proposal this week. What do you think about his plans? Do you think any of them are plans that you could support?
Well, going back to cybersecurity, actually, I believe the president would like to see an increase in funding with respect to cybersecurity, and I agree with that. There are some things that I think are positive in the budget. We do have to get a fix to our national highway infrastructure funding. That's critically important, our roads and bridges. So there are some things that we need to focus on. But what I think overall, the budget, it's a deficit budget. It never balances. It calls for far too many tax increases on the American people. I think we have to get to tax reform, and I just don't see that the president's budget did that. So I don't think that there will be a lot of traction with the president's budget. There are a few things in it that I think both sides, with respect to Congress and the president, can reach agreement on, but I think overall most of his budget will probably not be accepted.
Congresswoman, I know last month the president he laid out his State of the Union speech and what he called policies that could really help the middle class. What's your reaction to this, and do you think any of those policies that he talked about during that speech would be something that you and other Republicans in Congress could support?
Well, I think what we all agree on is we need while the president calls it middle-class economic opportunities, I like to think of it as just opportunity economy. We need to make sure that we take the right steps to give people the opportunity to move up the income level and to move up the income ladder. Some of the things that Congress is working on that will have tremendous impact in the state of Indiana. We are such a huge life sciences state, and one of the things that we're working on in Congress, which I am hopeful the president will agree to when we get a bill passed, is called 21st Century Cures. It's being done in an extremely bipartisan way. It is trying to find ways to bring more cures to diseases to market faster so that people can get drugs and devices and things that will make their lives easier and healthier. And we have so many jobs in that arena in Indiana.
Do you think that the president's proposal that he'll be unveiling at Ivy Tech is the way to do it? I know he's talking about extending free community college to millions of Americans, something we've seen proposed actually at the state level here too. Is that something, do you think that's the way to achieve that goal?
I am one of the #1 fans of community colleges. I learned so much during my 5 years there about the value that they add in so many people's lives and the skills that they can provide. And it's an incredibly affordable education. And it's a great place for people to start, for young people coming out of high school or for older people who want to return and get some education. My problem with the president's proposal is that it's not free, that someone has to pay for it. It will either be through an increase in federal taxes or an increase in state taxes. What I love about Ivy Tech, it's a statewide system. It's heavily supported by the state of Indiana, but it also is a system that is one community college throughout the state. We are fairly unique in the country. Most other states have a different community college in different counties, but we have one state community college, and so there is economies of the way the institution is run. And so I think it allows the state and it allows Ivy Tech to keep its costs low, and I think that is a great type of institution to highlight. But I believe that the states need to make more of the decisions about how they run their community colleges. But I'm thrilled for the students at Ivy Tech. I know they're going to be very excited to have the president there to be highlighting their college. I think it's great for other citizens around the state to see all the benefits that Ivy Tech offers. But I think at the end of the day, I don't believe the president's proposal will be taken up, or that it is really a wise way to go. I really think it's up to the states to figure out how we pay for it. So many of the students at community colleges also do receive federal student loans and state loans, and so I just don't think his funding mechanism is the way to go, but I like his highlight on the value, incredible worth of community college education.
If I could pivot to another topic real quickly here. I know the House is discussing repealing the Affordable Care Act. What's different about this particular effort?
Well, yes, we did vote once again for a full repeal of the Affordable Care Act, but one thing I'm very excited about is just yesterday, Chairman Fred Upton from Michigan, who chairs the Energy and Commerce Committee, introduced with Senators Hatch and Senator Burr a replacement plan. And I know that the country has been waiting for the Republican Party to introduce a replacement plan. And so I would encourage people to check out the CARE Act that was introduced introduced yesterday, Patient Care Act. And so I think that is what we have been waiting for, and I look forward to debating what is in the Patient Care Act. I hope that my colleagues on the other side like a lot of the provisions of the Patient Care Act. What it does that I think a lot of people liked about the Affordable Care Act is it ensures that people with pre-existing conditions don't lose insurance and have the ability to keep and have insurance. It assures that people can stay on their parents' health care up to age 26, but it takes it back to a much more patient-centered, focused insurance program. And it tries to ensure that it is a more competitive system. And what the Affordable Care Act never did, which I believe this plan could do, it will ultimately drive down the cost of health care.
And Brooks also tells Katie Hines that she plans to place a link to the new proposal on her website if you want more details on it, and that her goal is to continue to increase the number of people who can afford health insurance for their families. Coming up, the shakeup in the race for Indianapolis mayor now that Olgin Williams has dropped out of the race. We bring in our political insiders next on Indianapolis This Week. And welcome back to Indianapolis This Week as we welcome in our political insiders, Democrat Dan Parker and Republican Jennifer Hollowell. Let's start with talking about President Obama, his visit to Ivy Tech Community College this week, talking about offering free community college tuition. Is this a plan that has any chance at all of becoming reality? Let's start with you, Jennifer.
Well, certainly not as it's proposed. And the biggest problem is it's not free. It's actually very expensive. We're talking about a $60 billion proposal over 10 years. And, you know, that's the biggest flaw in this plan, is trying to tell people that this is free. There's a cost, and taxpayers are going to pay that cost. And that is the opposition that Republicans have expressed to this, in addition to the fact that I think it's important for students to have skin in the game. And while we all agree that community college is important and we want to make it more affordable and accessible, this is probably not the best approach.
You're saying there's no way to pay for it. He says it's free, but no way to pay for it.
Well, we don't know. I don't think he's offered details on how it gets paid for.
Dan?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to always have the president in town, and I'm glad I'm here. I was not having to be there, but you know, the average Hoosier student graduates with $28,000 in debt. So, you know, students are having a skin in the game to get college education. But, you know, Indiana ranks in the bottom 10 for college attainment. So we have to, you know, change the debate here and have it be about, you know, pre-K through 14, not 12. We need more kids in Indiana going to college and getting advanced degrees. So this is the start of a debate that needs to happen. In terms of what Jennifer had to say about the cost, this is an investment in our kids and in the future. If we can spend money on a lot of other things that are huge expenses, it's about priorities. And our kids' education needs to be a priority, and this debate needs to happen.
He's talking about closing those tax loopholes on the rich to help pay for it.
Take a step back. Part of the discussion and debate that needs to happen is the affordability. It is the cost of college. And that is happening in some places around the country, but it's a big issue that needs to be addressed in and of itself before you get to this point. Now, there are a lot of people who like maybe part of the concept of this, but would rather see it dealt with at the state level, not another federal program, a $60 billion price tag, and that's just for 10 years.
This program is modeled after a program in Tennessee, and it's highly successful in Tennessee, and it's an issue that needs to be put on the forefront here in Indiana, but also nationwide, and I commend the president for putting it on the agenda.
Let's move on to the Indianapolis mayor's race. Late this week, Deputy Mayor Olgin Williams dropped out of the race. Does this hurt or help Chuck Brewer as the Republican candidate?
Well, it certainly helps because he now is essentially the only candidate for mayor. There are other candidates who filed, but Chuck is the leading candidate on the Republican side. And, you know, Olgin Williams has done a lot of great work for this city for many years, and he will continue to. But this kind of takes that debate away. And so it strengthens Chuck's position. I think he already was in a strong position, but it just, you know, kind of further advances that and allows him to focus on the general election entirely.
So, Dan, does this give a clear target for Joe Hogsett now?
Well, I'm not going to profess to know the Republican primary as well as Jennifer does, but I think it was very interesting to see everything that happened this week with Olgin Williams' interview with the Indianapolis Star, where he talked about he didn't believe that Chuck Brewer could win, and there was talk of a lot of pressure brought to bear on the deputy mayor not to run. But I think that this race is really all about Joe Hogsett and his vision. He's put that out. We haven't really heard much from Chuck Brewer. I know that he's a first-time candidate. He's new to our city. We're looking forward to hearing what he has to say. But Joe's going to be putting his vision out there for the direction he wants to take our city, and Democrats are excited about that. And this is going to be an exciting race for Joe Hogsett to be our next mayor.
Does this mean that Charles Harrison re-enters the race in November?
Well, I think that's incredibly interesting, and we don't know the answer to that. Dan talks about pressure brought to bear, which is simply not true. But I have also heard that Democrats are putting a lot of pressure on Reverend Harrison to try to keep him out of the race because they're afraid that that really hurts Joe Hogsett's chances.
So Olgin Williams was not forced out of the race?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Dan?
Well, it was interesting, a Wednesday column in the Indianapolis Star, and then all of a sudden the next day, big news drops.
Well,
his comments were pretty direct in the piece in the Indianapolis Star.
Let's talk about maybe some decision points. January 16th, Olgin said he was running. 17th, he said he wasn't. The 19th, he said he was. And then, a few days ago, the column. I think that he was really struggling with whether or not he wanted to run. He was in and out and in and out. So that's
he's a man of his word, and he has committed his lifetime to our
Absolutely.
city and the neighborhoods. And I take what he said in the Stars as something that should be.
That you would say if you were going to run, right? That's what a candidate would say.
His description of Mr. Brewer as someone he didn't think we could win. I'll just leave it at that.
This is obviously a conversation that can continue going on for a while now, and the conversation will continue between our insiders on Twitter. You can check out their Twitter handles and give us your opinion, and stay up with Dan, Jennifer, Mary Beth, Laura, and Abdul throughout the week. Coming up, she survived the bombing of her church in Birmingham as a little girl, and now she is sharing her story, including how she says she was able to overcome her anger over the death of her sister. It's coming up next on Indianapolis This Week. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. It is a critical moment in the civil rights struggle, the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. The blast killed 4 young girls, and the outrage from it pushed Congress to pass the Civil Rights Act in 1964. A 5th young girl was severely injured, Sarah Collins Rudolph. She was just 12 years old that day, and now she's sharing her memories about her sister and her own struggle to let go of the hate she's felt over her sister's death. Rafael Sanchez has her story in today's Sunday Spotlight.
I would go to church. I remember on one Easter Sunday, he was up on the top of the stairs at 16th Street Baptist Church. And we were just going there to go to the basement because they was going to show a movie, Easter movie. How they had these movies for young people. And I seen him standing up on the church telling people, he had a bullhorn telling people to come on in the church for a meeting. He was just hollering, and we looked up there, but we weren't going to that meeting. We just wanted to see a movie.
That's right, you were kids.
Yeah.
At what point was Dr. King important to you? At what point did you realize that the guy that was at that church on that day with that bullhorn was the guy responsible for a big movement?
It was, I remember, like my mother when she would go to those meetings at night, and every Wednesday, and when she would leave, she would come home and let us know, what was going on. Like they would pray, and they would march. They would get a march, and it was really important to me because I wanted to see changes. I wanted to see change because when you go to the department store, you want to change your clothes there, try on what you're gonna buy. But we weren't even allowed that, and it made us feel bad. We couldn't even go to the bathroom in the store. We could spend our money there, but we weren't allowed to try on the outfits. We weren't able to try on the shoes. My mama had to make a mark on the shoes because they wouldn't let black even try the shoes on.
But at what point did you figure out Martin Luther King Jr., he he's like a big time. I mean, he's the guy that has led to change. You know, at what point, because you were young, so at what point did you realize, wait a minute, I knew that guy?
He came to my mother's house one day, you know, when they were going to eulogize my sister. But I didn't even get a chance to even meet him because I was still in the hospital. And I really hate I didn't meet Martin Luther King. But he told my brother, you know, my brother was so angry because he said he wanted to do some things to some, you know, whites. And he told me that Martin Luther King came to him and said, don't do that, don't do that. And he wanted to do it because whites had killed my sister. He said that when he told him don't do it, he said he didn't do it. Because he had his little knife and he wanted to, you know, hurt somebody. Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you angry? Your sister died and 3 other little girls died in a terrible explosion at a church. Why aren't you angry today?
You know, I didn't get just angry. I was just mad, simply because they killed Addie. And I stayed mad for a number of years. But until I realized that I had to forgive them for what they did, because people say when you hold that inside of you, the anger inside of you, you will get sick. So I had to just let all that anger go, because I didn't want to keep that on the inside of me and start getting sick and arthritis. You know, all this stuff began to happen to you. And I get angry, but I just tried in my heart, I remember it. But I don't want my heart to have all these evil thoughts about people. Because like I said, the devil can use you to do these things, but it's up to you not to do it. So I feel like if we still love people, love wins. Love always wins.
And our thanks to Sarah Collins Rudolph for sharing her remarkable story. Indianapolis This Week will be back right after this. And we thank you for joining us. I'm Erica Fly. Have a great Sunday.